Hello everyone, I'm Anders E.T. Herzberg, and this is the Cap Ball Saloon, podcast dedicated to the Second Amendment in the digital age. On today's episode, we'll be covering a number of new patent designs. Of course, we'll have to talk about the P320 drama, and so much more. If you're an FFL, stay tuned for the end of the show where we have some really good advice in how to set up a Google business profile to help you drive more traffic and sales through your door. So, stay tuned. But before we get into today's episode proper, a quick word about Cap Ball Digital Strategies. We are, of course, a digital marketing agency. We connect FFLs with shooters through high-quality SEO and digital marketing services. So, if you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your bottom line, visit us at capandballseo.com. But with that out of the way, let's get on to today's show proper. So, first up on today's episode, I wanted to go through a number of recently released patents. There's actually quite a few here that we can talk about. First up is actually going to be an integrally suppressed revolver. Daniel Waters recently posted on X about this and a number of other patents, and this is actually really interesting. So if we take a look at this guy, this is the first suppressed six-shooter that I think I've seen as a proper, patented production. Correct me if I'm wrong, possibly there's something that's a little bit earlier than this, but this is an integrally suppressed revolver. Now, for those who may be watching who aren't in the know, revolvers are notoriously difficult to properly suppress for a number of reasons. But the main one is that cylinder gap that you have between the barrel's forcing cone and the cylinder itself. It's basically just a little small gap that sits there. And that's necessary for most revolver designs because the cylinder, of course, has to revolve. Now, this design does seem to be taking some notes from the Nagant M1895 revolver design. So essentially, it looks like if we go to claim 13 here, the revolver cylinder is actually being cammed forward as part of the firing process, and that's eliminating this gap. So this allows the revolver to be integrally suppressed. Now, the rest of the drawings do show somewhat of a kind of clunky design here. I mean, obviously, you're adding a suppressor onto the end of the revolver, so it's going to be kind of big and chunky inherently, but this is interesting. I would really like to see this actually come to market and see how well it shoots. Now, the patent itself does mention just 22 caliber here, but I would be really interested to see something like this in a 357 or 38 special maybe. But let me know what your guys' thoughts on this are. Let's move on to the next patent that I wanted to actually talk about, which was a open-framed revolver with a changeable drum. This is the Zenic and the Zenic RZMK357 revolver specifically. Now, this guy is almost like the Bond Arms Bullpup 9 and the Smith & Wesson Model 3 had a baby. So, a very unique design. So, instead of having the cylinder in its traditional location, if we take a look at the drawings here, you can see that the cylinder is actually moved kind of to the rear and above the firing hand. So, I'd be very curious to see how this shoots. And while I'm not sure if it's currently available for purchase, as I haven't really been able to find much information, Zenic LLC does have a active website with production images for the revolver here, or at least renders from what I'm seeing. They appear to be offering a black model and a silver model of the same design here, but it's kind of an interesting, almost bullpup take on the revolver design, and I'd be very curious to see, again, how does this thing shoot? Like, is it softer recoiling, or is the recoil impulse just kind of different? Um, Very intrigued to see how this thing ends up shooting and what kind of niche this thing fills. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this particular one. Now, another design that I wanted to go over that is a recently published patent is from CZ. Now, this particular one is interesting because it's actually similar to something that I had talked about a little while ago, specifically that it's a design for allowing safe disassembly and basically disassembly without a trigger pull. Now, if you'll remember one of my videos previously talking and speculating about the Glock Gen 6 possible design features, also talked about the Glock getting a patent allowing them to have the pistol be disassembled without doing a trigger pull. So this is something that is kind of interesting to me because now we have two companies here, both with patents on designs basically kind of doing the same thing with striker-fired pistols. Both of them are trying to make it so that the pistol does not have to have its trigger pulled before disassembly, which is kind of an interesting trend, maybe? Now, I'm kind of speculating and getting in the weeds here, but maybe we're seeing a shift in, at the very least, the requirements for military or LEO procurements requiring these things, hence driving these patents to be designed and applied for from companies like CZ and Glock. But for the CZ patent specifically, last speculation that I've seen online points to this being something of a design intended for the Bundeswehr specifically. So in this article here, you see that the cross-sectional pistol P13 contract has been awarded to CZ to replace the P8 in the Bundeswehr. Basically, the speculation is P13 will be in, of course, 9mm, and will be phasing out the P8. They're adopting a 7-year framework for this changeover, and that's supposed to have it started in November of 2024. But it's possible that this is something that's going to be going into the P13, and it's going to be something of a modified CZ P10F pistol or something similar. I haven't found a whole bunch of additional information on this particular, P13 and what its design features are, so if you guys have any additional information, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. But getting a little bit back to my speculation, maybe on the civilian side of things, we'll start to see a little bit more of a demand for pistols that use these kinds of things, such as a disassembly without having to, pull the trigger. I'm not entirely convinced that that's something that we'll actually see, but, military preferences can inform civilian preferences and vice versa, so who knows what we'll see. But anyway, let's move on to the next patent that I wanted to talk about, Colt's Glock Killer. And again, Daniel Waters was kind enough to send me a link directly to this particular patent, and let's take a look at it here. Now, of course, on X, I was joking in my typical deadpan way that this was the M&P 3.0 on X, but in all seriousness, this is yet another entry into the striker-fired pistol market. Now, looking through the patent drawings, descriptions, and everything, I don't see a whole lot here that's radically different from the existing striker-fired pistols that are on the market right now. But one of the things that I was looking at specifically was to seeing if this would be a polymer or metal frame, and I don't see anything in particular about it being polymer or metal. I would be really, really surprised if it wasn't polymer, but the thing is, Colt's been doing 1911 style pistols for quite a while now that I almost wonder if they might not have enough tooling, or at least tooling that they could retool to, produce this particular pistol with a metal frame instead. I would kind of be interested in seeing a striker-fired pistol design with a metal frame, because there are some benefits to having that additional mass and weight. Is it as comfortable to carry? No, definitely not. But given that Colt does have a history with 1911s, and that's pretty much their bread and butter, I don't think this is too crazy of a suggestion. But I don't know. It's probably far, far, far more likely that this does end up being a polymer striker-fired pistol with, it looks like just a standard kind of Glock-style pistol. I'll show you some of the other drawings here on screen now, but I don't see anything that's too terribly radically different from what's on the market right now. So again, I would be surprised if this did end up being a metal framed striker fired, but if anybody was going to do that from the factory, Colt might be the only one. But who knows? Let me know. Am I completely crazy and just totally off the rails here? Or is this something that you guys might actually be interested in? Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is the Chia Rhino 60DS and 30DS revolvers are now being offered in 10mm auto. Why am I talking about this? Well, I just recently released a 10mm auto history video, and this is an excellent segue to pimp that particular video. So, let's talk about the Chia 60DS in 10mm for a second. Now, the Chia Rhino is basically just their standard Chia Rhino, just chambered for 10mm. I don't see anything particularly different about it, but I do like the Chia Rhino revolvers. The bottom firing cylinder design is really cool, does help to mitigate some of that recoil impulse. And this is one of the revolvers that I definitely need to get one into my personal collection. But right now, MSRP on these guys is around $1,400 on their website. So pretty penny, but I do think that the Chia revolvers are worth what they're asking for, even if they are quite a bit more expensive than your standard striker-fired fare. Next up, we do actually have some news about both Lima 6 and Fryc, two projects that I've been following along with very closely, and both of them are nearing ready to actually be able for you guys to buy. So let's start out with Lima 6 belt feds. So recently on Twitter, Harvey posted an update video, and the beta units have arrived, and Harvey's looks like he's doing, or probably by now almost completed, the assembly for the beta units. In this video that he posted on X, you can actually see some of the work and effort that went into making that top cover an incredibly stable optics mounting platform. Set screw, tension hinge. I really do think that this is going to end up being a really great product that's going to turn the belt-fed market upside down with its affordability and cost-to-value ratio. Also, one thing that I want to point out here is using a standard magazine release for the covered latch, I think, is absolutely brilliant. This honestly may not sound like much, but if you think about it, Harvey is showing that he's looking for ways to keep his costs down and the end costs down and keep it as an easy to service platform as well. So awesome props. I really want to see this thing in full action and in full production, and would love to get my hands on one of these guys once they're ready for prime time. But the other project, Fryc, is also nearing completion as well. On July 28th, Fryc showed off an initial pre-production test unit that he's working on with Pomax, and it seems like it is performing flawlessly. There is, let's see here if I can scrub through the video and show this guy running here. So it seems to be performing just fine, no issues, bolts holding open and everything. Looks like this is just about ready to go, and with a street price that's looking to be around $130, and rumor has it that the pre-orders are going to be starting here pretty soon for the initial run. I think this is going to be a pretty dang cool project and product that I, again, would love to get my hands on. You know, between the two of these, I do have a couple of lowers that really want to get something built. I might have to get at both of these for my next lower build. Anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on Fryc's magnetic buffer and the Lima 6 belt fed project? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, I know this next bit is a little bit old, and everyone's attention span moves so fast these days, but I did want to briefly talk about Gavin Newsome showing up on the Shawn Ryan show. This honestly just disgusts me, to be perfectly frank. Look, I'm not going to sit through the whole, 4 hours and 12 minutes of these two going back and forth, and Newsome trying to pretend that he's not Newscum, that he's some kind of brilliant moderate that'll unite both sides of the aisle and blah 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 blah. No. But the big thing that I wanted to talk about here is the ridiculous, let me see if I can't find it here in the video. I think it's coming up here. But him, Shawn Ryan giving Gavin a California compliant pistol. This ridiculous PR stunt is just absolutely ridiculous to me, and it makes me very skeptical of Shawn Ryan as a political commentator or podcast host. Now, we know that Newsome is eyeing a presidential bid, and this looks like, to me, a blatant attempt to cater to those who are not paying enough attention to what's going on in terms of Second Amendment rights in California. And this kind of stunt does not just happen, especially at this level of politics. With somebody who we know is eyeing a presidential bid, these kinds of things flat out just don't happen, folks. And either Ryan is clean in this and is just dumb as a box of hammers and is complacent in this and just doesn't know what he's doing and played right into Newsome's hands, or he literally is part of some orchestrated PR event for Newsome. So, I don't know. Pick your poison on that. I really am not going to say one way or the other, but this particular dog and pony show is just disgusting to me, and like I said, I'm not going to sit through 4+ hours of Newsome trying to pretend he's a moderate when he's actually a massive radical. But just the cherry on top for this particular event is that Newsome can't even keep the pistol because California's gun laws are so Byzantine and ridiculous that he can't even properly navigate them to accept the gift from his latest PR stunt. So, yeah. Hopefully this little bit of political theater has failed to convince anyone outside of California that Newsome deserves their vote, but who knows? It's just something that popped up on my radar and annoyed me just enough for me to want to put a section in this episode of the Cap Ball Saloon talking about it. But let me know if you guys have any thoughts about this particular political dog and pony show in the comments section below. But let's move on to our next topic. Now, of course, the bit that you guys have all been waiting for, the P320 fiasco continuing dumpster fire. I honestly, I really wish that I could stop talking about this, but of course, it's in the news, everyone's talking about it, and of course, I must fall victim to chasing the views and the followers. So, if you're sick of hearing about the P320, forgive me. If you want a rundown of what's been going on recently with the P320, stick around. We're going to be talking about it. So, to get things started, on July 20th, an airman was shot and killed after taking off his M18 while still in the holster. At least that's the initial reports. In response to this, the Air Force at the time, I'm not sure if they still are for all units, did pause using the M18 and replace them with M4s, at least temporarily. Now, this is the second death that I'm familiar with because of a P320, and now the military contract for the M17, M18, I think is going to see even more scrutiny. I'm not 100% convinced that this is going to be the end of things, but quite frankly, I do think at this point there is a very rapidly ticking clock for SIG in terms of the wrong person taking a look at things and being like, why are we spending all of this money? Why are we keeping this contract around? I mean, yes, granted, military logistics are really, really difficult to just turn around and stop on a dime. This isn't civilian or LEO sales. But I have to think at a certain point, even the military has to stop and say, wait. Now, SIG's recent posts on X do also suggest that the Army is involved in this investigation, but I do think that if this kind of thing happens again, SIG is going to be lucky to keep this contract. And yikes. With public opinion already being so negative around the P320, I'm wondering if this contract and the XM7 and the ammunition contract are the primary things keeping SIG afloat. That's probably not a great place to be if you're a company that has long-term ambitions about surviving. Kind of business 101 is don't have just one client that you're reliant on for all of your sales. Because, I mean, at that point, are you a business or are you just a contractor at that point? Anyway, I should point out that there were issues with the Beretta 92. So it's not like this is the first time that the US military has had problems with a new pistol when they first adopted it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I am going off the top of my head here, but my recollection is that it was a slide breaking issue that resulted in a few injuries, and the fix was some changing to the heat treating or the heat treating standards. I don't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head, but I know things were changed and the issue was addressed. Now, here's the thing. That was an identifiable issue. I think SIG is probably having a harder time nailing down exactly what the issue with the P320 is, because it's might be a combination of issues that we're looking at. But in the interim, there is the Air Force P320 inspection guidance that has come out as well, and this particular guidance basically just says, go through all of the pistols, and let me see if I can find some more details here. Like inspect these parts and take a look for this, yada yada yada. Yeah, so like captive safety lever free of burrs, spurs, sear notch free of burrs, spurs. Anyway, so there are at least inspections being done on the military's existing stock of P320s, M17s, M18s. So, I don't know, maybe I would be very surprised if we didn't see at least something from this. Maybe tighter QC checks for acceptance or something like that. Again, I'm not entirely convinced that this is going to be like the end for the P320, but I mean, this puts them on pretty thin ice, I would imagine, with the military. I mean, maybe someone in the comments section can chime in who's a little bit closer to the issue than I am, but this really does seem like something that would make even the military stop, pause, and be like, hey, wait a sec. Now, I have seen it argued that, this inspection thing is kind of a, nothing to see here move, oh, we're trying to make everybody feel safe kind of thing. But I do think that, at least personally, I do think this is something as a relatively quick response and is something that I'm glad to see and, should be done, especially in the wake of an incident like this. Now, as far as the incident itself, there have been some rumors that maybe the initial reporting that it was just, taken off and set down on a table well in the holster might be a little bit different, and apparently this might have moved from a investigation to a criminal investigation. So maybe there is a little bit more to this story where this isn't just potentially the gun's fault. So I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions or do too much rampant speculation, or at least when I'm speculating, be very clear about when I'm speculating. So, I don't know. It is something that, again, I think the military does need to be taking a long, hard, and serious look at the M17, M18. And, again, I've never wanted the P320 to fail or fall flat on its face. I would like to see SIG be able to turn around the reputation of the P320 family, but so far they've been doing a really, really, really bad job of it. And at this point, I think my original statement of fire the whole frickin' C-suite, do a mea culpa, and say, yes, there's something wrong, and here's a potential fix, is the only way really out of this for them. Because if they continue on their current trajectory, even though they have recently softened their messaging somewhat, I don't know how they recover properly from this. So, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Only time will tell on this. But this isn't the only thing that's recently come to light about the P320, especially if you guys have been following this much like I have. There is, of course, the uncommanded discharge issue that the Wyoming Gun Project was able to find. Now, let's see here. Oh, my ad experience is absolutely awful because you're interrupting my video. So, basically he was able to, with a small amount of rearward travel on the trigger, be able to induce a situation where the P320 was able to fire. Now, here's the thing. Both Ivan Prince Guns and Jared AF on YouTube have rebutted this particular, test. And I have to say I'm with them on this. I think they have some good counterpoints, especially regarding the fact that, we are starting to take up the slack. We are starting to engage the process of actually firing said gun and, bringing up that trigger pull there. So, I don't know. To me, I understand the argument, and I'm very much on the side of, okay, if this is kind of a BS thing to focus on, we should probably focus on real issues, not, fake Fugazi issues. But I will say this, and this isn't a, oh my god, I think Ivan Prince Guns and Jared AF are retarded or gotcha. No, I personally, with an SR40 that I have not been able to replicate this particular issue. That's another striker-fired pistol that uses very much the same kind of design as the Glocks, and I'm sure if I was able to get enough fine-grained control over the exact positioning of the trigger, I could induce this. I just haven't been able to induce anything other than kind of binding things up and making it so that the trigger will no longer travel rearward to actually fully drop the release the striker and let it go forward. So, yeah, again, not a herder gotcha, this doesn't work on all striker-fired pistols, but at least I have had a hard time replicating it. So to kind of wrap everything up, that gives us the old drop safety issue circa 2016, 2017, I think it was, with the P320. The possible mismatch between the sizes of the takedown safeties that LFD research has found, parts breakages, springs getting loose, striker safeties getting stuck in the upward position so they're not actually working properly, and now, at least to try and be as fair as possible, a very small amount of rearward travel on the trigger, at least compared to other striker-fired designs, allowing for a induction of potentially unsafe conditions. Again, like I said, I don't think the Wyoming Gun Project's, testing is some kind of a smoking gun, even though I haven't been able to replicate the same kind of issue with the striker-fired pistol that I've tried it on personally. But again, I think we should be focusing on better tests and better root cause issues that can actually lead somewhere to saying, okay, this is the root cause of the majority of the issues with the P320. But To wrap up this section on the P320, there is one last thing that I should talk about, and maybe it's a little bit of a glimmer of hope for the P320, or at least the M17 M18, which is yet another newly released patent. This patent comes from Brian McDonald, and apparently this guy's a former SIG employee, and he's developed a patented an improved version of the manual safety for the P320 that actually blocks the sear from dropping. Now, if you're unfamiliar, on the P320/M17/M18, the manual safety itself only blocks the rearward travel of the trigger. It doesn't actually block the striker itself or movement of the sear. What this particular patent is trying to do is actually block the rearward travel of the sear. So if you can, we'll take a look at some of the designs here, or the drawings, and I'll show you some of the changes that are being made here. So yeah, like this right here. This is the previous design, and then this is the improved design. And basically what this is supposed to do is allow for lockup of the sear through, I'm guessing we're preventing the striker safety from disengaging by using the manual safety to do that. And this patent actually has some pretty funny shots fired in it, to say the least. Now, quoting from the patent here specifically, the prior art safety mechanism will prevent the trigger bar from moving forward and acting upon the sear to release the firing pin, but it does not in any way prevent the sear itself from moving under the force of any other action. This allows the potential for the sear to be jarred and moved from the reset position to the release position, even when the firearm safety is in the safe position. This condition is clearly shown in figure 14. This allowed rotational movement of the sear will then release the firing pin. When this occurs, the firing pin will be free to travel forward with only a firing pin safety featuring minimal contact area remaining in place to prevent the firing pin from striking the primer of a loaded round already positioned in the barrel of the firearm. In this way, the prior art is an incomplete and unsafe design. This further evidenced by multiple lawsuits which have been filed alleging that the P320 model firearm will have accidental discharges even when securely stored in a holster with no action being taken to manipulate the trigger, safety, or any other component of the firearm. Yikes. I don't think I've ever seen shots fired quite that dramatically in a patent before, but here we are. Now, the interesting thing about this is that McDonald's design is apparently a drop-in for any P320 versions with a manual safety. However, there apparently will have to be modification to those without it with some additional machining work. I think additional hole needs to be drilled or something like that in order to accommodate the manual safety for P320 fire control units that don't have a manual safety as already integrated into them. Now, I don't know if something like this will save the P320, but here's the thing. SIG won't be able to just up and copy this particular work. If they want to incorporate this patent is assigned to Angled Spade Technologies LLC, which I'm assuming is Brian McDonald's company, or at least one that he's involved in closely. And if for some reason there's going to be an M17A1 or M18A1 that wants to adopt this design, SIG would have to license this. So they're now kind of in a rock and a hard place unless they want to come up with something completely different to do the same thing, and I don't know. I don't know if they would be able to do that. But but that does wrap up everything that I wanted to talk about for the P320 drama as of late. Hopefully, I will be able to wait a while longer before having to talk about the P320 again. I really hope I'm not coming back to you in another couple of weeks saying yet someone else has been shot by a P320 accidentally. And I really hope not, because the first one is really rough, and I imagine that this was not any better. And I just hope that maybe this will finally wake up and SIG will start taking this issue seriously and really do what actually needs to be done, because they need to clean out their whole C-suite. They need to present themselves as a completely brand new company, and they need to say, yeah, there are problems and we're trying to fix them, instead of doing these shadow upgrades and hidden changes that we've been seeing over the years with the P320. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this particular issue in the comments section below. But with that all out of the way, let's move on to our next topic. Now, as a little bit of an aside, apparently the P320 is not the only military firearm that's having issues. Apparently the MK22 sniper rifle is having some similar issues. There have been a few different videos that have been floating around on the internet showing similar issues. Basically, we have an attempt to fire the rifle, and then it not being able to go into safe, and touching the bolt, and bang. So, I guess the Barrett MK22 is joining the P320 club. Well, maybe not. Now, granted, I'm not super familiar with this particular rifle or its functionality, but it looks like maybe, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, the out of battery safety is working properly and preventing the firing pin from going all the way home. But with the bolt being bumped, it's getting that just last little bit into battery fully and allowing the striker to, or the firing pin to drop and actually set off the round. Maybe this is a slight tolerance issue. Maybe this is something that would go away with the firearm being broken in. I'm not entirely sure here. If someone's a little bit more familiar with this particular platform, please feel free to chime in the comments section. I have seen some people saying that this is a potential issue with certain similar firearms, so let me know. Honestly, I'm willing to, at least at this point, give Barrett the benefit of the doubt. Everybody has bad batches, or the odd issue. It's entirely possible that something slipped through Barrett's QC, or standards have slipped a little bit. Maybe that's the case, but if this is kind of a one-off thing and it doesn't keep happening, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But once is happenstance, twice maybe a coincidence, 3 times is definitely enemy action. So I don't know. I'll be keeping my eye on this, and if this does keep popping up, I'll definitely be talking about it a little bit more if there is, additional incidences other than this initial small batch of a handful of videos that I've seen floating around. If there's more details that we can talk about, I'll definitely let you guys know. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are, or if you're more familiar, or, well, a lot of people are going to be far more familiar with this particular rifle than I am. I have absolutely zero trigger time behind anything like this. So let me know if you guys have a little bit more of an expert opinion in the comments section below. But with that out of the way, let's move on to our next topic. So for our closing segments, I did want to talk a little bit more directly to FFLs, particularly ones who are smaller businesses and trying to attract more traffic online. You may have a website set up and, some basic things running, but one of the big things that you shouldn't be overlooking is your Google business profile. Now, this is something that, when it comes to digital marketing, is very easy to overlook or think that it's just something that I set up once and kind of forget about. Not really. This is something that should be actively maintained and worked on. Why? Well, because it is a really good source of traffic, especially if you're an FFL with a brick and mortar front and you have more product offerings other than just doing, basic transfers, or you have a small inventory of firearms that you're trying to sell. Heck, even if you're a trainer or something like that and you're not even in the business of selling firearms, having a Google business profile set up and properly optimized and, active is really important to drive business, because people can find your website, call you directly, see all of your reviews and everything through there. So I would rate it as second in importance to your website when it comes to your overall digital marketing plan. So let me kind of set the stage here for you. Say somebody is searching for a FFL near them. Say maybe they're looking for a particular firearm, or they just ordered a dagger from PSA, or one of PSA's AR-15s, and they're looking for a local FFL to actually do the receiving. Where are they going to go first? They're probably going to go to Google. They're going to try and find a FFL that's near them, and they're going to want to see you in the top search results, because those are going to be where the vast majority of the traffic actually goes, specifically the map pack. Here, let me show you. I'll bring up a Google search here. So this, if I just type into Google gun stores near me or gun store near me, will give me the same kind of results. But this is the map pack here. And if you're not familiar, this is going to show you search results that have stores that are related to your search, or at least what Google thinks are related to your search. You have your top 3 contenders. Now, on other searches, you might have sponsored links up here, and depending on what exactly they're searching for, there may be advertisements. Firearms-related keywords like gun store really aren't going to see those kinds of things because of Google's AdWord policies and advertising of restricted items like firearms. But regardless, you still want to be in this map pack, because again, 44% of all of the people who are searching for something local are going to be going to this map pack, and they're probably going to be clicking on result number 1, if not maybe 2 or 3. So the question is, how do I start working my way into the map pack here on these search results? Well, it's a little bit of a process, and you're going to have to go through a few different things if you don't already have a Google business profile set up. I'm going to, for the sake of this particular segment, assume that you don't have anything set up and walk you through the process from beginning to end. So, sorry about that little hiccup. Apparently my camera decided that I didn't want to talk to my recording software anymore. But as I was saying, I'm going to assume that you don't have anything set up, and we're going to go from the top here. First, if you don't already have a Google business account set or a Google account set up, get that set up. First, you're going to want to go to get your business on Google. There's a specific page. Just search for something like set up Google business profile or create Google business profile, something like that. That should bring you to the page to actually get this set up. In my free digital marketing misfires guide that you can find on my website, I have links to all of these important pages inside of the PDF, which you can download simply by signing up to our regular newsletter. Now, if your business for some reason is already on Google Maps, you can claim your business profile. There is a specific page that you can go to, or you can just search for claim my profile on Google or claim my business profile on Google, and that will allow you to do so. Very often you'll see Google business profiles be automatically created, especially for stores that have been around for a while but aren't necessarily all that tech savvy, so haven't really been paying attention to things like this. So if you fall into a category of a little bit more of an older location that's still doing okay, but you haven't paid a whole lot of attention to digital marketing up until recently, you might already have a Google business profile already created for you, at least the basics of one, and you can simply log in and claim it if that's something that you're looking to do. So once you have your Google business profile either created or claimed, the next thing that you're going to do invariably is you're going to have to verify your Google business profile. Typically, Google is going to make you do a video verification. Now, this is basically just recording a short video where you walk into the store through the front door. You're probably going to have to, make sure that you're showing off your signage outside. You're unlocking the door. You're going into employee-only areas, or you're accessing a point-of-sale system or something like that. Google definitely doesn't want to see faces inside of the video, but they do want to see, an exterior shot. They want to make sure that they're actually getting the right location, and they want to see signage for your storefront. As a note, as an FFL, you do need to have a brick and mortar location with proper signage if you want to set up a Google business profile. For home-based FFLs, you cannot be a service area business, so there has to be some kind of a signage on your actual building because you are dealing with restricted items. So unfortunately, this does kind of lock out a lot of the smaller home-based FFLs that are just focused on doing transfers and that kind of thing as their business model, or basically being kind of a side project. If you do want to be on Google Maps, you do need to have a proper brick and mortar set up. Now, technically, you could probably get away with having a home-based FFL as on Google Maps, but again, you're putting your address in an even more public location. So weigh those cost-benefit analyses for yourself. If that's something that you're comfortable with, then go for it. But I would recommend that, and you would probably have a much easier time as an FFL on Google Maps if you did have a proper brick and mortar setup. So home-based FFLs that are trying to follow this process, it would not surprise me if you do run into some shenanigans with Google Maps and your Google business profile. So don't be surprised if something like that happens. And this is Google. They're not exactly in love with gun stores to begin with. So, your mileage may vary here. But let's move on. Once you do have it complete or created and verified, the next thing you're going to want to do is actually complete your Google business profile. So first off, you're going to want to do something like set up your business name. So to use this one as an example, RAC Guns and Ammo, you're going to want to make sure that that's correct and matches, your signage and your business cards, your marketing material, that kind of thing. You're going to want to choose your category. Right now, last I checked, gun shop is going to be the most accurate category available, so Google knows what you do. If you're a little bit of a mix between like outdoors, fishing, general hunting and camping gear, you might want to pick a slightly different category. Take a look at the different options that are available based off of your particular individual offerings, but gun store is the one that is probably going to be the most applicable to most of the people who are going to be watching this particular video. Address and service area. You do need a proper physical address, and you cannot be a service area business as an FFL. They're just not going to let you. Or at least they will probably end up letting you for a little while, and then as soon as Google catches on, restrict your Google business profile, yeet you from Google Maps, and you'll have one heck of a time trying to get that undone. So I recommend from the jump, just have a single business address. Don't have a service area business. Next, make sure your regular and your holiday hours are properly set up. If you do have any kind of a change in your business hours, make sure that you're updating it on your website and other profiles first, then updating it on your Google business profile, because if you do that update, they're going to start checking those places to verify that that information is actually accurate. Another thing, as a small aside, on your website itself, you can also add schema markup, and as part of that schema markup, define what your business hours are as well. Another little tip that you can leverage to improve the SEO or the on-page SEO of your website itself, leverage schema markup for things like local business, business type, what are your hours, what's your location, yada, yada, yada. This is all stuff that you can embed directly into your website, and Google and other search engines will be able to see that and pick up on that. But make sure you're editing outside things first, like your website, your social media profiles, your Facebook page, etc. Then update your Google business profile with the up-to-date information. Make sure that you have the correct phone number, of course. People can, as you can see here on this Google business profile, call you directly just using this button here. On a cell phone, that's going to prompt them with their dialer, and they're going to be able to just hit dial and give you a call. And so make sure that that phone number is accurate. You don't want it to be incorrect, because it's going to be a very bad experience for people, and Google will rank you lower if you have a bad phone number on your Google business profile. Make sure you're adding things like your website. If you have any social media profiles, you can add those on as well. I would recommend, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, depending on what else you might even want to have, maybe Rumble on there as well, depending on how exactly you want to play out your marketing strategy and diversify things. But those three are a good solid starting point if you don't want to be juggling too many social media, profiles all at once. Make sure you're highlighting your services and your products, and obviously you don't want to be highlighting or putting links to things like, firearms, pistols, rifles, strip blowers, that kind of thing. But make sure that you are highlighting your product, what kinds of products you offer, what kind of services you offer, that kind of thing. You have this entire description space that you can put stuff into, and people will be able to read this and see what kind of services you offer. You have your business type, gun shop in Sparks, Nevada, yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, there are some other things that you can do as well. So let's see here. I don't think... Yeah, no, they're not. There is a Q&A section as part of the Google Business Profile that you can leverage as well. So if you have things like frequently asked questions, you can actually pose those questions in the Q&A section and then turn around and answer them. So like, what's the cost for an FFL transfer fee? You could say, oh, it's $25, $30 or $50 or whatever it ends up being. Do you guys offer, scope mounting services? Oh, yes, we do. That kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff that you can put into the Q&A section. Basically, if it's a common question that you get asked, I would recommend that you probably put that into the Q&A section yourself and then answer that question. You do also have a post section that you can utilize here. This, again, you do want to be a little bit careful about promoting the sales of like guns and ammo directly. But if you do have other services such as, CCW classes, firearm safety classes, medical training, you offer, holsters, scopes, optics, basically anything other than guns and ammo, you can relatively safely post about them on your Google Business Profiles post section without running afoul of anything. Or if you have like, oh, we're doing a holiday sale, 10% and off store wide or something like that. That's another type of promotion that you could run. Another section that you should be regularly interacting with is your review section. You want to take a look at this, and of course you want to encourage people who are happy with your services to leave you positive reviews, and if possible, respond to the negative ones. If there's any kinds of issues, try to address those. I recommend in responding to negative reviews, be kind, be courteous, and remember that everyone and their grandmother is going to be able to see your response to this. So make it professional. Don't make it a game of one-upsmanship or you're totally wrong, da-da-da-da-da. No. Try to be professional if you're responding to negative reviews, and also make sure that you are monitoring the reviews for any talk of like illegal activity or things like that. Of course, you can also report reviews that are like that, just to make sure that they are not potentially adversely affecting your Google Business Profile, especially if, somebody's like, oh, hey, they sold me a gun under the table, and trying to, do some negative SEO tactics against you, then that would be something that I would immediately report and make sure that it gets removed as quickly as possible from your Google Business Profile, because you don't want Google to think that you're not following your federal, state, and local laws, especially when it comes to firearm stores, because trying to get your Google Business Profile back after some kind of hard suspension or deletion is a really difficult process. Trust me, it's not fun. Now, another thing that I would also recommend that you do is make sure you have your notifications turned on for your Google Business Profile. In the management, you have a profile settings page that you can go to. This will let you turn on notifications for, everything from important updates when, customers leave you a new review, if there's any new questions that are posed. There are things like bookings. So if you're leveraging the bookings feature for, like, say, maybe your CCW classes or your firearm safety classes, then that's something that you could do as well. When customers post new photos, etc., etc., etc. Oh, another thing that I should mention on the review front. A good way to get additional reviews and actually drive review traffic is to have some kind of a QR code, especially like up at the register or something that's sitting on the counter that customers can just easily scan. It'll take them directly to your Google business profile to leave a review, and I would encourage your satisfied customers to leave a review, because this will definitely help you. Now, there is much more to actually ranking well, but doing all of these basic things will get you a start in being able to properly rank. And again, this is especially important for these small to medium FFLs that might not necessarily have a big marketing budget or anything like that. And honestly, if you're one of the only, if not the only FFL in your area who's actually paying attention to any kind of a digital marketing strategy, you'll see your sales and your numbers go up quite dramatically, especially if you were towards the bottoms of the rankings to begin with. Because I guarantee you, if somebody is going to look for a gun store, an FFL, or whatever for the first time, the very first place that they are going to be looking is Google and Google Maps. And again, almost half of them are just going to go straight to the map pack, and they will be clicking on one of those first 3 links that you see right here. They're going to go directly to this. They're going to literally ignore this little button right here that says more places, and you see these top three are getting all of the traffic. Everyone down here, they're getting exponentially less and less and less traffic for gun stores near me. So if you want to be up here, actually getting the traffic, actually getting people to come in through your doors and spend money with you, you want to be in this map pack. Now, if this all seems overwhelming, and this seems like something that you don't want to deal with, but you do recognize how important that this could be for your bottom line, get in touch with us. Seriously, we want to help you out. Go to www.capandballseo.com/book or shoot me an email at contact@capandballseo.com. Set up a phone call with us. We'll discuss your situation, and we'll go through how we can actually help you. Because that's what Cap and Ball is here for. It's here to help small and medium-sized FFLs actually grow. And if you're at the point where you want to take things to the next level, get in touch with us. We would love to help you. Now, the next section that I have for you guys is a brief Q&A section about your digital marketing questions as FFLs. So I posted on Twitter recently asking about, what are some of the questions that FFLs have when it comes to, digital marketing. I got a really good response from React Survival Adventure and Field Equipment. Really nice guy. Gone back and forth with him a few times, and really cool dude. But he asked specifically, as a small business, what are some of the more effective methods of getting feedback from customers and potential customers when making decisions that are customer facing? So, It's a little bit of a complex question, and there are a few different ways that we can kind of approach this particular thing. But let me break this down into like two major sections. One, with this, I'm going to assume that you have a decent existing email list. Now, you can send out surveys directly to your customers if you have a good email list already established. If you don't, there's a little bit of a different tack that we can take. But for your existing customers or people who are signed up to your email list at the very least, I think this is a good way to judge and get actual direct customer feedback. Now, there are tools that you can use, such as Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, there's SurveyMonkey, there's a whole bunch of other ones out there, but you can basically create a survey, put that into some kind of an email, and send that out to your email list. Now, obviously, you'll want to do some kind of, hopefully you already have some kind of segmentation where you have, okay, these are my active, customers, and these are the kinds of things that they're buying, or however you want to divide things up and kind of segment your email list so you're not feeding everyone the same stuff and you're giving people emails and things that they actually care about, a little bit more tailored to what their purchase history has been, or at least their browsing history on their website, on your website, if you have some kind of a login and you're able to track that kind of thing. But this allows you to get direct feedback from your existing customers who have already said, yes, I want to have a strong enough relationship with you that I'm going to either A, give you my email, or B, give you my email and spend money with you. These are probably the most valuable type of feedback that you can get, because these are people who've already said, yes, at the very least, I want to be in touch with you on a regular basis, or yes, I actually want to spend money with you. And I hate to say it, but the opinions of randos who haven't or probably aren't going to spend money with you probably aren't all that important to your bottom line at the end of the day. But what if you don't have an existing email? Well, there's some other way, or an existing email list, excuse me. There are some other ways that we kind of approach getting this kind of feedback from your customers. So, one, you can look at social media. If you have a decent or a smaller-ish following, you can solicit feedback directly from your social media followers. Now, granted, not all of them are going to be necessarily your customers. There are plenty of businesses online that I have not been able to purchase from, but I still follow on social media and interact with on a regular basis. So my opinion is probably not going to be as important as somebody who's actually spent money with them. But if you don't have a solid email list, this is a good way to, get some customer feedback and see, hey, what are the questions that I want to pose? Post it on social media, see what kind of feedback and responses that you get. Another way that you can get a little bit of feedback is also through Google reviews. Now, we were talking about Google reviews and things like that, but people will leave you feedback if they're super happy with something or if they're super, super pissed off about something. So, as almost counterintuitive as it sounds, the negative reviews can actually be very useful in this regard. If there is some kind of a legitimate problem that keeps popping up in the negative reviews, that is something that you can potentially take a look at and take action on. So, obviously, take stuff with a grain of salt, look at the things objectively, but if a problem keeps popping up over and over and over again in the negative reviews, maybe you do actually have a problem and not just one rando who didn't like your haircut that particular day or your shirt that particular day. So again, that's another way of getting feedback is through those reviews. And it's not just Google. If you have a Yelp profile, you can get feedback through reviews on there. There are other ways that you can get feedback through reviews on your Facebook profile. So take a look at these different ways for people to actually interact and leave you feedback. This is what it's there for. But there's another option that we can take a look at, a little bit more indirect. So Microsoft offers a tool called Clarity. Now, this is a user behavior and interaction tracking tool. Basically, what this allows you to do is see how users are interacting with your website and what they're actually doing. Actually, let me do this. Let me do this for you guys so you at least have a little bit of an idea of what this looks like. So, okay. So this is Microsoft Clarity. Now, I don't have a ton of traffic on my website, so I don't have a whole lot of interesting stuff to show you. Oh, you know what? Let me do this. And this here is a recording of me interacting with the website previously. And you can see kind of where the user is actually interacting with, what elements they're clicking on, and where they're going, that kind of thing. We also have heat maps here. Yeah, so you can see where people are clicking. So like here, this element here for the menu, and then let's see, this is going into an inner element area. So obviously with more traffic, you would have more data, but this shows you where people are interacting with. Now, if people are, interacting with areas of your website that like say, oh, this doesn't really do anything, well, maybe you should make it do something. If people are lingering, like say if we go to like the recordings, and if I go back to this recording here, so say we have something like, see mouse movement kind of lingering around like this area right here. Maybe you should consider redesigning things a little bit so that, your mouse is or you have something right there for people to actually use. But of course, this is kind of starting to dive into the weeds a little bit more. But my main point in showing you this is there are other ways of collecting information and additional feedback, be it things like Microsoft Clarity, be it Google Analytics, be it other types of tools without having to directly go out and ask people questions. You can see what kind of behavior and interactions that they're having with your website. What pages are having high bounce rate, which to explain the jargon means somebody visits and then just immediately leaves and doesn't come back. That's, maybe there's something wrong with the page. Maybe you need to tweak the copy on it, or maybe you need to change the layout or something. These kinds of analytics tools can give you a lot of data and information that you can actually take action on without having to directly go out to your existing customer base, send them emails, and then hope and pray they actually answer the survey, or go through social media and pose a question and hope that you're getting responses primarily from people who either have bought from you or want to buy from you in the future. But hopefully that kind of long-winded explanation gives you a little bit of an idea about how to actually gather feedback from your customers or potential customers, and start to having some kind of an idea about making effective changes. So with that all wrapped up and gone over, I would like to pose a question to you guys. What are your particular concerns as FFLs? I would love to hear from you. What are the challenges that you're facing? What are the things that you're trying to look to improve upon? If you leave those in the comments section below, as part of my next video, I'll be answering those questions. I would love to hear from you guys and to help you out. So let me know, what are your biggest challenges right now, and what are the biggest questions that you have as an FFL or someone who's marketing to the Second Amendment community through digital means? What are you going through? What do you guys need help with? What are you not understanding? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will do my best to give you a good answer that you can actually take action on. But I think, yep, that wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about for today's episode. I apologize, it's been a little while, guys, since I've been able to get one of these up, but I appreciate you all for watching. A few quick channel updates. I recently did release a 3-part series on FBI ballistics and my own personal spin on the FBI ballistics standards, my OREF standard, or Objective Handgun Round Evaluation Formula. Check those videos out, or visit www.capandballseo.com/OHREF if you guys want to try out the free online tool that I've created and play around with the system. I even have a downloadable Excel file if you guys want to tweak around and play with some of the numbers and make your own little suggestions. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the OREF standard, my improvements. What do you guys think? I would love to get some collaborative feedback on it, because this is something that I think really does do a much better job of looking at handgun round effectiveness by taking a look at the whole picture. But of course, I came up with the idea, so I am mildly biased on this. But with that out of the way, thank you again, guys, for taking the time to hang out and watch today's episode of the Cap Ball Saloon. But as always, I'm Anders E.T. Hersberg for the Cap Ball Saloon, hoping to see you all again real soon.